She said our relationship was just a test to see if I was real. Have you ever had a word die on the tip of your tongue? You know it, you can feel its shape, but it just dissolves into nothing. Imagine that feeling, but it's not a word. It's a memory. It's a whole afternoon. It's the person you love. Imagine that feeling is your entire life, and you're the one dissolving. I think I'm dissolving. Her name was Sierra. For almost 2 years, she was the axis my world spun on. Before her, my life was a series of beige rooms and predictable routines. I was the guy who checked the door lock 3 times, not twice. I read the ingredients on a box of cereal. I lived in the quiet, carefully constructed margins of my own existence. Sierra didn't live in the margins. She was the whole damn page, written in vivid, chaotic ink. She was loud laughter in a silent library, the taste of ozone before a lightning strike. She found me huddled in the corner at a mutual friend's party and didn't ask what was wrong. She just handed me a drink and said, "The best people are always hiding near the exits. Show me what you're trying to escape from." I fell for her like a man falling from a cliff. It was terrifying, and I couldn't get enough of the rush. She taught me how to order wine I couldn't pronounce, how to dance in the rain without feeling stupid, how to exist without constantly apologizing for the space I occupied. For the first time, I felt solid. Real. It's funny, isn't it? That she was the one who made me feel real, before she started taking it all away. The first threads came loose so quietly I didn't even notice. Little quirks, I called them. Protective habits. Text me the second you get to work, Oren. Not when you get there, but the second. I'd be walking through the doors, fumbling with my phone, because if the message came at 9:01 instead of 9:01, her tone would be off for the rest of the day. Don't leave your phone by the bed. One night, I woke up thirsty and saw her standing in the moonlight, unplugging my charger and placing the phone on the dresser across the room. She didn't know I was awake. She just did it, silent and purposeful, like she was disarming a tiny bomb. Don't use that word. We were at dinner with her friends, and I made a joke about something being surreal. Sierra's hand shot across the table and gripped my wrist. Not hard, but with a strange electric pressure. Her smile never wavered, but her eyes bored into me. "We don't use that word," she murmured, so low only I could hear. "It's inaccurate. Stick to the approved vocabulary." Her friends kept laughing, oblivious. I just sat there, my skin buzzing where she'd touched me. I explained it all away. She was anxious. She cared. She had her little superstitions. The warmth she gave me was worth the occasional chill. I was so starved for the light, I didn't realize how deep the shadows she cast were becoming. The first time I felt the ground truly shift beneath my feet was after our friend Kaylin's birthday party. I remember the night perfectly. The apartment was hot and smelled of spilled beer and cheap incense. I spent most of the night pinned against the refrigerator, the cool vibration, a welcome anchor in the sea of bodies. I remember talking to a guy about vintage synths for half an hour. I remember watching Sierra across the room, a flash of red dress and dark hair, laughing with her head thrown back. I remember the specific weight of the amber-colored bottle in my hand. A few days later, she was showing me photos from the party on her phone. "Look," she said, swiping through the images. "Kaylin looks so happy here." Picture after picture flashed by. Groups of people laughing. Candid shots of dancing. Kaylin blowing out his candles. All of them pulsing with the life of the party I had just attended. But I wasn't in any of them. "That's weird," I chuckled, the sound catching in my throat. "You didn't get any of me. You weren't standing there," she said, not looking up from her phone. "What?" I was right by the fridge. I was standing next to you when you took that shot of everyone singing." She finally looked at me. She tilted her head, a slow, curious motion, like a biologist studying a peculiar insect. A faint, clinical smile touched her lips. "Maybe you just think you were." "No, Sierra. I was there. I remember it." My voice was getting tight. Her smile didn't waver. It felt less like an expression of happiness and more like a default facial setting. "If you say so, love." She turned back to her phone, dismissing me. Dismissing my entire experience of the night. My stomach twisted into a cold, heavy knot. I looked at my own hands, half expecting them to be transparent. It got worse. The glitches started piling up, each one chipping away at my foundation. I sent her a text one Tuesday, gonna be late, stuck on that Henderson project. See you around 8. 2 blue check marks confirmed she'd read it. I got home at 8:15 to find her sitting on the couch in the dark, the only light coming from the silent television. The air in the apartment was thick and still. "You're late," she said. Her voice was flat. "I know, sorry. Did you get my text?" "What text?" "I texted you at 5. I told you I'd be late." I pulled out my phone, my thumb already shaking as I navigated to our chat history. See, right here. Sent 5:12 p.m., I held it out as evidence, my proof. She calmly picked up her own phone from the cushion beside her, tapped the screen a few times, and held it up to my face. I stared at her screen. Our chat history was there, her messages, my previous messages. But where my 5:12 p.m. text should have been, there was nothing, an empty space. A clean, unbroken conversation that made my phone look like a forgery. "You must have imagined sending it," she said, her voice soft, reasonable. It was the kind of voice you'd use to soothe a child who'd just had a nightmare. You do that sometimes. You think you've done things. I felt a scream building in my chest, hot and sharp, but it never came out. I just stood there, breathing shallowly, the light from our phones painting our faces in a sick, ghostly glow. I was a bug in her jar, and she was just watching me struggle. She began to voice the questions that were festering in my mind, but she'd say them so casually, as if asking about the weather. "Are you sure you're real, Oren?" she'd whisper, tracing patterns on my back as we lay in bed. "Why do you sometimes feel like a placeholder?" she asked once while we were grocery shopping, holding up 2 identical cans of tomatoes. "Do you ever remember things that couldn't have possibly happened?" She'd muse while stirring a pot on the stove. Each question was a tiny crack in the mirror, and I was starting to dread looking at my own reflection. I started doing little things to anchor myself. I'd leave a book on the coffee table face down on a specific page, just to see if it was still there when I got home. It always was. But the doubt she planted had taken root. What if I just thought I'd left it there? What if my memory was just a script I was reading from? The night I looked at her phone was the night everything broke open. She was fast asleep, a deep, rhythmic breathing that felt impossibly calm. Her phone was on the nightstand, its screen dark. A voice in my head, a primal instinct for survival, screamed at me not to touch it. But a louder, more desperate part of me needed to know. I needed a piece of solid ground, even if it was bedrock at the bottom of an abyss. Her password was 2222. So simple, so arrogant. I didn't look at her messages. I went to her photo gallery, then to her file manager. And there they were. A series of folders with sterile, terrifying labels. DO Observation, Lobe W Fration TVH. Shadow, Integration, Tests W. Pulse W. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. With a trembling finger, I opened Tubservation Log. It was full of pictures of me. Hundreds of them. Me sleeping, my face slack and vulnerable. Me cooking dinner, my back to the camera. Me sitting on the balcony, staring out at the city, looking small and insignificant. The angles were all wrong. They were dispassionate, like security footage. I was always slightly out of focus, or partially obscured by a lamp, or captured in a way that made me look like a ghost superimposed onto the background. There were videos, too. I clicked on one. It was me talking. I was telling a story, gesticulating, smiling. But there was no sound. My voice had been stripped away. Instead, a low, ambient, almost melodic drone played over the silent footage of my moving lips. It was the most profoundly unsettling thing I had ever seen. I was a puppet. Beneath some of the files were notes. Plain text files. See file subject sleeping .note. Note REM cycles appear normal. No signs of spontaneous memory corruption. Subject remains stable within the established narrative. D-file subject, recounting workplace anecdote. Note, minor narrative deviation detected, refers to a Mr. Henderson. monitoring for further inconsistencies. Vocal track isolated and archived. I felt a surge of nausea so intense I had to clamp a hand over my mouth. I put the phone back on the nightstand, placing it exactly as it had been. I lay back down, my body rigid, and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. The next day, I confronted her. I couldn't hold it in. I saw your phone, Sierra. She didn't flinch. She just continued buttering her toast, her movements slow and deliberate. You weren't supposed to see that, she said calmly. You're disrupting the process. Process? What process? What the hell is tapa stability? She set the knife down and finally looked at me. Her eyes were placid, devoid of any anger or guilt. It's complicated, Oren. My work is sensitive. They're watching how I interact with the variables, how I handle stress stimuli. They? Who is they? A flicker of something pity, maybe, crossed her face. If I tell you, you'll disappear, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. For real this time. Do you understand? They'll just patch you out. I tried to leave. A week later, I packed a duffel bag while she was in the shower. I was shaking so badly, I put my shoes on the wrong feet. I had my hand on the doorknob, the cold metal, a small, solid piece of reality, when I heard her voice from the living room. If you walk out that door, you'll be classified as a failed experiment. I turned. She was sitting on the sofa, wrapped in a towel, her hair dripping onto a blanket draped over her shoulders. She looked completely serene. They'll know you broke your programming. Is that what you want? You can keep playing along, and this can all be fine. Or you can try to leave and risk deletion. She shrugged, a tiny, dismissive gesture. Either way, I'll be fine. My evaluation continues. You, on the other hand. She left the sentence hanging in the air, a threat more potent than any shout. I don't know why I listened. Fear, maybe. Or maybe a tiny, insane part of me was starting to believe her. I put the bag down. The breaking point was dinner with my mother. I insisted on it. I needed to see my mom, to feel the unconditional reality of her presence. The dinner was normal. We talked. I ate her terrible, wonderful pasta bake. I told her about the Henderson project. She told me about her garden. It was real. Driving home, the silence in the car was suffocating. Finally, Sierra spoke. Your mother is a lovely woman, she said. Yeah, she is. She holds up well. It must be lonely for her, eating by herself like that. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. What are you talking about? I was right there. She shook her head slowly, her eyes on the road. No, Oren, I had dinner with your mother. You weren't there with your mother. You weren't there. You stayed in the car. You stayed, Raiden. You imagine these things to make yourself feel more complete. I slammed on the brakes, pulling the car over to the shoulder with a screech of tires. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, my whole body trembling with a rage that felt like it could tear me apart. Stop it, I choked out. Just stop it. She leaned over, her face close to mine, her breath warm against my ear. She whispered, they're testing my reaction to your episodes. If I respond incorrectly, they might just wipe your recent memory, or they might delete you. Be a good boy and just exist. Quietly. That night, I snapped. I started screaming. I grabbed her phone, unlocked it with her stupidly simple code, and shoved the screen in her face. Look, is this your work? Logging my sleep cycles? I threw a ceramic mug against the wall, and it shattered with a satisfyingly real, deafening crash. I needed to make a mark. I needed to prove I could affect the physical world. Syra didn't even flinch at the noise. She just stood there, her expression unreadable, and waited for my storm to pass. When I was finally spent, panting and shaking amidst the porcelain shards, she spoke in a low, disappointed whisper. You weren't supposed to become self-aware. You've contaminated the entire study now. I left. I walked out the door and didn't look back. I crashed on Kaylin's couch and spent 2 days sleeping, trying to reboot my own brain. I thought it was over. I thought that by leaving her, I had chosen reality. 2 weeks later, I saw her. I was in a grocery store, staring at the cereal aisle, trying to remember what I liked to eat before her. And there she was, standing near the automatic doors, holding a shopping bag, just watching me. No anger, no sadness, just observation. My feet moved before my brain could stop them. Syra. Oren. How are you? The question was absurd. I'm fine. The project was terminated. I'm being reassigned. The casual, corporate language sent a shiver down my spine. I had to know. I had to ask. My voice was barely a whisper. I'm real. I don't care what you or they think. I am real. She tilted her head again, that same curious, inhuman gesture. Her eyes were steady, her voice chillingly quiet. You're still here? The final patch hasn't rolled out yet? They must be keeping you around as a control sample. My blood turned to ice. She turned and walked out the automatic doors, disappearing into the anonymous afternoon crowd. That was the last time I spoke to her. But it's not over. The glitches are worse now that I'm alone. My reflection in the mirror sometimes lags a half second behind my movements. I'll get a notification for a text message, but when I unlock my phone, there's nothing there. I took a screenshot of my bank account yesterday, and the image file was just a blank white square. Last night, I came home to a plain manila envelope slipped under my door. No stamp, no address. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph, a polaroid. It was a picture of my new apartment, my kitchen, my cheap table, the half-eaten bowl of cereal, my phone sitting right where I'd left it. It was the exact view from my seat at the table, but my seat was empty. I wasn't in the picture. I flipped it over. Scrawled on the back in messy, blocky handwriting were 3 words: do not feed. I don't know if it was from her, I don't know if it's from them, I don't know if I'm a ghost, a glitch in the system, or an experiment that's been abandoned. All I know is that I'm dissolving, and I'm terrified that one day soon I'll look in the mirror and there will be nothing there at all.